Drew was in a drug-induced psychosis brought on by heavy marijuana use and is sober now and in a program called Cornerstone, which is an alternative peer group based in Houston, Texas. He works the steps in AA and he is 18 years old with almost 2 years of absolute sobriety. Drew is grateful to have healed his relationships with his family and friends, and that he is part of a group of friends that genuinely care for him. He is also grateful to have his sanity back, but he understands that he must keep working hard in his program if he wants to maintain these things. Thank you, Drew, for being part of my life and the community of Every Brain Matters and having the courage to share your story tonight. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Aubrey. Well, my name's Drew, and 18 years old. Tomorrow, I'll have 22 months, completely sober in May. So I guess I'll just go ahead. I don't want to share too much about like the I guess darkness of what I my addiction, but I do think it's important to talk about, just kind of look at where I was coming from. But what I really want to talk about is just like what I've gotten out of recovery. But I'll just start with, so I was born September 5th of 2003. And I mean, I don't know, my childhood was really good. Had two pairs of, I had two really loving parents, or a really loving family in general. And like, I was like, there wasn't much in my life growing up that was kind of like, I don't know, like a driving force and me choosing drugs. I mean, and I think like one thing that did change stuff for me was when I was 9, my parents ended up getting divorced. And that was kind of like, for me at the time, like it was a pretty big deal, because like when you're young, I mean, even now, like, my family is like a lot of my identity, but at the time more so. And so that played a huge role. But by that time I was already on like prescription medication, and I was abusing that at the time, from the age of 7. So, and I don't like blame anybody for that but myself. I mean, yeah, I was a child, and yeah, like maybe I shouldn't have been on like those meds, but it was a conscious decision at the time, because for me, even that young, I was still like pretty certain, or pretty I don't know, aware of what I was doing, which is kind of weird. But yeah, I think fast forwarding a little bit, I mean, when I was 10 was the first time I smoked weed. And that was, I remember like exactly what I did too. I think, so I was staying over at my dad's house, and I asked him to drop me off at one of my friends' house at the time. Because I think I told him we were gonna go to like It's or something like that, and we ended up going to like buy weed and smoke it. And like at the time, for me, like that was like, I don't know, it was like a huge turning point, because by that time, like I was already like fully aware that like alcohol, because I was already drinking by that time, alcohol was like made me feel really good. And I always wanted to feel like that where it was like like kind of blissfulness. And yeah, so when I got into weed, that first time I smoked it, it was like instantly like I was like hooked. Like it was one of those things where it was just like I wanted to feel like that way like all the time, and like it turned into that pretty quickly. I mean, I think it took me like a little bit to become like an everyday smoker, but I say a little bit, I mean like 6 months maybe. I remember 6th grade was like when I started doing it every day before school, every day after school. The only time I wasn't doing what was in school, but that would soon change, because I would like, you know, it become over the years, it would become more accessible. Marijuana would become more accessible, and just drugs in general too. I mean, but I think, I can't really say like when I kind that like break started to happen, that psychotic break started to happen. When I was in 7th grade, I started to have like really bad panic attacks, because I was like getting high all the time and like abusing medication. And in 7th grade is when I was like diagnosed bipolar. Um, and but I never like told anybody that I was like using drugs as heavily as I was. Like I would be in like psychiatrist sessions and they'd like ask me if I was like smoking pot, and I'd be like, yeah, I've done it like once or twice, but like I was probably high in that session. So it was like one of those things where it was like I just didn't want anybody to know, because like um it was like I was trying to hide a part of like who I was, because like drugs and alcohol at that time were definitely a part of who I was. And so yeah, I think I'm gonna fast forward a little bit into when that like break actually happened. So I think for a really long time I like convinced myself that weed or pot or whatever you want to call it wasn't like I would always be told it was like a gateway drug and stuff like that, and I'd be like, no, it's not. um, I'd like truly believe that that it wasn't, until like I hit high school, and then like something changed where it was like I get into high school and I'm just like yeah, I had been smoking weed for 5 years at that point. So no, 4 years at that point. So it got old. It got pretty old. Uh, and so I like decided to like go into other things, and that's when like stuff really got bad for me. Weed was always like something that I mean, I like smoked weed from like the day I first tried it to the day I got sober. So it was never like there was barely a time where I was actually genuinely sober. I always had something. But yeah, that break really started to happen whenever I got into high school. I mean, I think I had just like put my brain into through like so much. At a certain point it just couldn't take it anymore, and honestly I couldn't take it anymore. I mean, like I was like relatively suicidal, not like to the point where I was like gonna hurt myself, but I just didn't want to like live past a certain point, and that definitely became apparent when I got into high school. I mean, like I just wasn't showing up as like human anymore. And I would just like, have like crazy ideas about like what life's supposed to be, or what I like thought life was supposed to be. And one of those things was getting into high school. I definitely started to play God. There was like a couple year stretch where I thought I was God, or like my perception on reality was that like everyone is their own God, and like you control your destiny and stuff like that, which isn't stuff I necessarily believe now, but that's just what that's just what I was telling myself at the time. And that like got me to like a really dark place, because um it got me to a place where like I convinced myself that um I started crossing my own boundaries. When I was young, I mean, well, I'm still young, but when I was like, a child, um, I'm still kind of, anyways, when I was like 9 or whatever, um, like I was raised good. Like my parents like put like gave me like good ideals and stuff like that, and like raised me right. Um, and so I had kind of a moral compass, and it was like the real break started to happen for me when I started to cross that, when I started to like kind of throw away that moral compass that I had, and like start to cross my own boundaries and do the things that I said I would never do. And like um one of those things was like hurt my family. And that was like the biggest thing, was that's what I started doing. I mean, um like I would just like lie, steal, emotionally and physically like hurt my family. And that didn't feel good. And it's not something that I wanted to do, but for some reason, um, and in hindsight, like that's just how much like drugs and alcohol had a hold on me. But like I felt as if it was necessary, because like I said, like whenever I was I was in psychosis for at least 2 years. I mean, there's no way, like, because um, the way I think now is just so different from then, and like I can remember all my thought processes then, and how like insane they are, um, and like I have like video evidence of like how insane I was, and like photo evidence. But anyways, like it's it's it was really like kind of scary to see myself like and see like the look on my like parents' faces and like family members' faces when they would like see me, because they knew I was hurting. I just never showed it, or I was always like pushing it down, or numbing it. And that like caused a lot of like where I was just hiding from everyone, hiding like from myself. Basically, I was convincing myself that like I was a certain way, when in reality, like I was like hurt, I was scared, and I didn't know how to go on any further. The only thing that I knew was that I had like something that would make me at least feel a tiny bit better, which was, drugs and alcohol. And um, my thing was always weed, but it progressed into other things. And I don't think I need to like say like the names of all those drugs, but weed's a gateway drug. But yeah, so I'm kind of just gonna like go ahead and, so I got sober May 5th of 2020. And the reason I got sober is because from 14 to 16, I convinced myself that selling drugs was like the way I was going to make it in life. And so I started doing that. And I started to become extremely heartless. That's like where a lot of like the hurting people that I loved came from, was because like I was so desensitized to hurting other people that like I really didn't care if you were my family or not. I was going to hurt you either way. And so yeah, and I became like I was still using drugs very, very, I mean, even like when I started selling drugs, my drug use ramped up way more actually. And I was using way more because there was more stuff that I was experiencing that I had to kind of push down. Losing friends, overdoses, hurting people, that like, fights, everything like that, where it was just like, it was stuff that I couldn't live with. But I was, but drugs were always there to help me push it down. And those last couple days for me, May like 2nd to 5th, were probably some of the worst days of my life. I mean, that was like the breaking point for me, where I had little moments of clarity in those days, but those were like the days where all that bottled up emotion and bottled up insecurity just came out. And I really, really hurt somebody. I ended up really, really hurting somebody, and it was something that I didn't think I could live with. And I remember getting home that day after doing that, and getting high, or getting more high, I should say. I was already kind of messed up that day, but and just like breaking down, and like curl up in a fetal position in my room, like praying, that like, I mean, I say praying, but I was like literally just pleading with like anything that was listening to me besides like real people, to like, please like show me the right path in life. And a couple days later, parents called an intervention on me, and started to, during the intervention, I wasn't receptive. I thought they were crazy. And like, I started to like threaten to like hurt them, and had like guns and stuff in the house, and other drugs in the house. And that was like, so they called the police on me. And I mean, I ended up in rehab. So, and I went to a rehab called Sundown Ranch. It's in Canton, Texas. Great place, extremely good place. Love the staff there. But I wasn't ready yet. I wasn't ready to be sober. One thing I knew for sure was that I was done with the like torment that I was putting myself through, and I was done with like feeling imprisoned by like myself, basically. But I didn't want to give up drugs and alcohol. I mean, I just didn't want to give it up. It was such like a part of me that I couldn't imagine life without it. And I couldn't imagine life with it anyway. Like, I couldn't imagine going on any further without offing myself, or being arrested, or getting killed, or overdosing, or something like that. I couldn't imagine life with or without drugs, alcohol, weed, pills, whatever. And that was kind of like my that was my like bottom, basically. I get out of rehab, and I don't remember exactly how I ended up getting into Cornerstone. All I remember is 2 people just showed up to pick me up from Sundown. And I was just like, yeah, I'll go with y'all, because my parents were with them. So I thought I was going home, and I was really pissed to find out that they just drove me to Houston to live with this really cool dude for like 6 months. Yeah, I think it's also important to mention what the mental and physical effects that happened as a result of like my addiction. So when I got in rehab, I couldn't read. I had to relearn how to read. I mean, it was like I could it was weird. I could read words, like know what they were, but I couldn't put them together in a sentence and stuff like that. So like I remember my first meeting in rehab, I got handed the preamble and was like, it sounded like I was like trying to read the Declaration of Independence or something. Like it sounded really bad. And then like I remember like trying to write too. So I was like, I learned how to write print and then I learned how to write cursive. So I knew how to write both. Now I can only write cursive for some reason. And like my, what? Sorry. Yeah. My concentration's really bad. And that's, I think that's a lot, has to do a lot with like my usage. I mean, but other than that, like a lot of it was mental stuff, not a lot of physical. And things happen, but this is like the part that I really wanted to get to the most was what happened once I got into recovery. I mean, because this is the most important part. You know, at the end, when it was all said and done and I was in rehab, I didn't see my life going anywhere. I didn't see me like going any further than I didn't believe in myself. Like my self-esteem was so low that I just didn't think I could achieve any more in life than what I had already achieved. I mean, you know, at that point, like I was a high school dropout, in rehab. And I thought of all those things as like being against me, right? But like looking back now, like those things were all for me. Like I was 16 and I was getting sober, and I didn't have to go back to school. Like those are all like really great things. And that like set me up for success. I mean, I got out of rehab and immediately got into like an outpatient program, Cornerstone group therapy, and like that. So Cornerstone, AA, and my parents, those three things saved my life. Because that was what was on the line for so long. I thought of it as like me losing the ability to use drugs and drink alcohol, but like really what I was doing was like killing myself, you know. Like I was like indirectly dying a slow death, trying to kill myself, and I didn't know it for so long. And then like it was a really cool experience to be able to come into a group and just be loved, because for so long I felt like I was incapable of being loved. I feel like I had done too much dirt. I had hurt myself too much. I had hurt other people too much that like I had no reason to be loved. And like my parents couldn't show me enough love. Well, no, I don't want to say that. I didn't want to receive my parents' love, if that makes sense. I didn't feel like I was worthy of it. And because they would tell me they loved me all the time and they cared about me, and family would too. And they would tell me how much potential they see in me and everything like that. And it'd go in one ear out the other because I really didn't believe it. And I didn't believe that for probably the first 10 or 11 months I was sober, because those first 10 and 11 months were like the hardest in my life. I mean, because getting sober for me was just this like huge like inner battle of me like knowing I couldn't control it but wanting to so bad. And just being super uncomfortable with feeling like my emotions again, because for so long like I was under the influence, and it was weird kind of navigating like my insane thinking with my normal thinking. I mean, for like so long, like it was like I thought one way, and it was like every thought that came out of my head and every word that came out of my mouth was like insane. Like, I don't know how my parents believed that I was sober, or if they even did. I'm sure they had their suspicions, but yeah, I mean, it was really, I think the most important thing that has happened to me, in sobriety is that I have a purpose now. I feel like I have a purpose now, and that purpose is to help other people. I mean, what keeps me sober today is helping other people. And I do that in like 100 million different ways, but like this being on this meeting right now and like sharing my experience with you guys is like keeping me sober. And like I appreciate everyone on this meeting for coming to hear my story. I know I'm like kind of unorganized and stuff, but yeah, I mean, like I just didn't see myself being at the place I'm at now. I mean, for like I said, for a really long time, I was just imprisoned. My thoughts were imprisoned by, you know, what I believe to be like my own like self-esteem. I mean, because I had none. I had no self-esteem. I had no like belief in myself and believe that I just didn't believe that I could like be anything more than like a like scum of the earth drug addict. And that's what I called myself for a long time too. I remember when I was in my addiction, like making a promise to myself that if I had to like be sober and for like if I got arrested or if I ended up going to rehab, because I knew kids who had been to rehab before, that if I had to do that, I would kill myself because it'd be a much better life than, or dying would be better than living a life sober. And that is like one of the biggest lies I've ever told myself. I mean, I wouldn't trade the life I have now for anything. Like there's just such like, I just love myself today. And I couldn't say that, I don't know, maybe even a year and a half ago. I mean, I love like the person I am now. I love the relationships I have now. I love like my family. You know, and I couldn't say all that years ago. I just feel so much more hope. I don't feel like my life is like, I don't feel despair anymore. I don't feel like impending doom. I don't feel like my life is going nowhere. And I feel like I know I have like a solution now. I know that I don't have to like imprison myself in my head and in drugs and alcohol and in whatever you know my mind is addicted to doing, because there's a lot more things in drugs and alcohol that I was addicted to, that I'm probably not going to get into, but it'll bring you like addiction brings you to really dark places, spiritually, mentally. I mean, my mental state now compared to 22 months ago is a whole lot different. Like I said, I mean, I made a pact with myself that if I ever had to get sober, I'd just kill myself because I felt like it would be better. And like that is, like I said, the biggest lie I told myself. And I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of talking in circles now. But yeah, I'm just extremely grateful. I mean, like I'm just at a loss for words as what to say, because like recovery has just done so much to me that I don't think I can like explain it in like, you know, even like 1 hour. I think it'll take like a couple of days for me to explain like what this program, AA, Al-Anon, my parents have done for me, because like it's literally saved and changed my life, and also the lives of 100 other kids that I know. Like I'm not the only one, and that was really cool to find out, was that like I didn't have to do this alone, because I thought I would. I thought I was gonna have to. Um, I thought this was gonna be like a lonely and dark time in my life. Getting sober, I thought that would be a lonely, dark time in my life, and that I was gonna have to do this alone, and it was gonna be like extremely difficult, and it was extremely difficult. But I had people to help me. One of my things right now is that I want to become like a professional mountain biker. Okay, that's another thing. I have dreams now, and I'm actually able to follow them. And I don't have like this voice in the back of my head telling me that like, oh, you can't do that. You're like too short or whatever. Um, and so yeah, no, it's like this is a kind of analogy I always like to use. It's like when I'm on a bike, right, and there's like a jump that I'm really scared about. What always helps me is letting somebody who knows how to do that jump go in front of me and me following them. I'm like 50% more likely to do that jump if I'm following them. And that's how recovery was for me. I mean, like there were 100 other kids that were in the same position that I was, lost, scared, uncomfortable, that have like walked through that and further, that I could kind of that made like a path for me. And that was like crazy to find out, because like I said, I thought this was going to be like a lone journey, a lone dark journey, and it's been like I don't know, the most amazing time in my life. I mean, I'm young, I'm sober, and I get to live life now, and that's like a blessing. The dark, lonely path was my addiction. So I don't really have much else to say. I really appreciate everyone that decided to come to this meeting. You guys mean a lot to me, even though I don't know a ton of you, but just the fact that you're listening really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. That was wonderful. A lot of experience, strength, and hope there. We'll open it up for questions, but I have a question first. Could you describe your day-to-day life now in recovery? What does that look like?
So it's a little different every day. I guess my favorite days are Thursdays, or Sundays. I can't really choose. Sundays are like my bike riding days, so I really love those days. But I do really love Thursdays. So what I try to do today is I try to fill my days with as much fellowship as I can, because like I was saying, like being alone in this program is extremely difficult, and it's extremely dangerous. So for today, for example, like I work, I have a job now that I go to 4 times out of the week because I have commitments, and those commitments are very important to me, and they're to recovery. One thing I focus on is putting my program first before anything else. But it's funny because I work with, my boss is someone who's in the program. He's in AA. So, I go to work, and I mean, this is what I did today. I worked, I came here, hung out with a couple friends on this meeting. After this, I'm going to go to another meeting with a couple more friends, and then we're going to hang out and have fun. I mean, it's the thing that I like to do is I like to put work into recovery, work real hard, and then like play even harder, because like, recovery, is hard, but it also needs to be fun. Recovery is so much fun. You know, it's like, because it's for me, it's like um I need it to be fun. I have tons of energy that I need to expend somehow, and that's like bike riding for me. And that's why I love Sundays. I mean, Sundays, all I do is bike ride, and then I go to a meeting that's filled with newcomers, and I go into that meeting to be of service. I go into that meeting because, like, I nearly have like 2 years of sobriety, and I know like my experience can help other people, and so I go into that meeting knowing that that meeting is not for me; it's for whoever's new, that I can help, and have gotten a lot of um, really cool experiences out of doing that, out of helping other people, but also having fun. So that's kind of um, what's been going on. Uh, I got another question through the chat. It says, from Reagan, what prompted you to abuse your medication at 7 years old? I don't know. It was a lot of things. So I think to start off, it was like the first time I ever took the medication I was abusing was like a ADD med. It was I don't know if I should really say the name of it, but anyways, it's an amphetamine, and so I remember the first time I took it, I noticed the difference right away, where it was like, oh, like I focus so much more better on this certain med. What happens when I take two? So it was kind of like an experimental thing. And then it became like, oh, this like kind of makes me feel good too. Like I don't sleep when I'm on it, and like all I want to do is like stay up and watch like YouTube, and like, you know, so it was kind of like a experimental, and then started off as an experimental thing and turned into like something that was a little more serious. But yeah, that's kind of my answer to that. Thank you for the questions.
Anybody can unmute and ask a question. Drew, do you sponsor other peers?
Of course, yes. When I say helping other people, that's usually what I mean. I mean, that's like the biggest thing for me is sponsorship. And I also have a sponsor, great person, great guy in my life. But I love helping people today. I mean, that's like the biggest light in my life. It's what keeps me going, because I know there's more kids like me out there that need help like I did. So yes, of course I sponsor.
And
Kim
if,
has a question.
oh yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Hi, I know you mentioned psychosis. My son's 28. He's been smoking marijuana since he was 15. It's now caused him to be in psychosis, but it's like a continual thing. So I didn't hear you say a whole lot about psychosis. There was a little bit. Was yours a continuous thing, or did it just come and go as you smoked it? Or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think for a while I held it together pretty well. I mean, like the first couple of years I was smoking, it wasn't, you know, I was thinking pretty clearly. I mean, you know, I was still a teenager, so my judgment wasn't super well. But once I hit 14 is when I started to, I noticed that my thinking became extremely black and white, and a lot more insane. I started to think like people were following me, and that I had like too much information. So like it was weird. Like I thought I had like way too much information, and that people were like after me to find out that information. And like
Exactly what my like. You can see people are watching him. His didn't. He was fine in the beginning, and then as I think it was about 3-4 years ago is when the psychosis just got really bad, and now he just constantly feels like he's being watched, and So,
Yeah, and that like it became so I thought like there was radio waves and stuff like that, and that like weed was blocking those radio waves. So I was high all the time, and so my psychosis never really went away until a couple days after I got sober. And you know, it hasn't really changed a lot of how I think. It was kind of like once I got my mind clear, my mind stayed clear. But I know from people that I'm really good friends with that it doesn't always happen like that. And for those people, like that's kind of what hurts my heart, where it's like I know that it makes me not want to kind of waste the chance that I've been given, you know. So that's a really good question. Thank you.
And Sean has her hand up.
Hi, Drew. I'm Sean.
Hello.
First, I want to say congratulations on the length of your sobriety.
Thank you.
But I want to know what keeps you sober? What keeps you, or do you even have any cravings from time to time? If you do, what keeps you sober? What's the thing that motivates you to stay sober?
That's a really good question. So, I do have like, there's always going to be that voice in the back of my head that's like, you know, negative. One thing that I know is that I choose to call myself an alcoholic. Basically, what that means is just like, you know, I call myself an addict too. It depends on how I feel at the moment, but yeah. So one thing that I've come to believe is that my alcoholism, my addiction will never go away. It's always with me. And so it's kind of like boxing. So I do a lot of boxing. So I use a lot of sports analogies because that's just what I like. But it's kind of like a boxer. Like if a boxer stops swinging, if a boxer's in a ring and he stops swinging, he's going to get hit. And so it's like I'm in the ring with, I don't know, a bottle of booze or a needle or a joint or whatever. And if I stop, like, you know, you working my program, like I'm going to get high, I'm going to get drunk, or I'm going to like self-harm or whatever. And how I work my program is through working with other alcoholics, going to meetings, working with my sponsor, and also like staying sober, obviously. I still have fleeting thoughts every now and then, very, very, very few and far between. I think what shows up a lot more now though is like the negative thinking, like I see money and I'm like, oh, I want that, you know, or I see like, I don't know, I still have like that criminal or whatever type of thinking. The thing I know now is I just have a lot better judgment. And I know like I can weigh my consequences now. I can play the tape through. That's a lot of what keeps me sober too, is being able to play the tape through. So like an example of that, I'll just go through this really quick, is like, okay, so say I'm, I don't know, walking down the street or whatever, and I see a joint on the ground. Maybe in the past I would be like, oh, like I'm gonna smoke that and get high, right? Well, now it's more like, okay, I'm gonna smoke that and get high, and then what's next? Well, I'm probably gonna feel like I'm probably gonna feel like really bad about it. So I'm gonna call my sponsor. I'm also gonna lose almost nearly 2 years of sobriety. I'm also gonna betray the trust of like, I'm also going to betray the trust that has been placed in upon me, and like so on and so forth. I mean, there's a lot more things I could lose But that's just an example of like kind of what goes on in my head when I see something really negative, or in my life. And you know what that's called is playing the tape through. But I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Drew and Kim, I just want to say I'm really sorry to hear about your son. If Drew, if like her son or a parent wanted to reach out to you outside of this meeting, would it be okay that, I mean, because I know I've asked you because I have families contact me all the time. And I go to you guys in the group, I'm like, hey, can you reach out to this person that's your age? Because it's like, they don't hear the parents, but they might listen with you and that positive peer support. So is it okay if I share your number if they contact me privately?
I think email would be better.
Okay,
Just I'm way more accessible on email. If I don't recognize a number, I usually don't answer it.
okay.
So email would be way better. But yeah, I'd love to do that.
Thank you.
Reagan asked another question. It's what is your biggest obstacle in your recovery today? Honesty, being honest. It's really hard to be completely 100% honest. Kind of how I survived for so long was lying my way through life, and it's not necessarily like lying completely, like where it's just like did you take that cookie, and I have like cookie crumbs all over my mouth and I'm like, no, I didn't. It's not like that simple. It's like it's more of lying to myself, if that makes sense. So like the biggest way I've done this lately is I was doing a 6 weeks yoga challenge, and that's part of like my recovery is like physical activity, physical health, because it contributes to my mental health. So part of that 6 weeks yoga challenge was 4 classes a week and 4 yoga classes a week, and then one like kind of group meeting a week. And I ended up getting 5 weeks into it and then failing because I failed to hit a group meeting. And so where lying to myself comes up is making excuses. So like I made an excuse of, oh, well, like, and this is kind of like what I'm fighting against now is like that inner talk, that inner excuse box in my head where it's like, oh, like this situation arose, or I forgot to make it to here on time, or I failed in this aspect, and I started pulling excuses out of the box. And one thing that I had to realize is like excuses are like just really well thought out lies. So like one thing that I make it a mission now to be is reliable. I mean, that's what makes me feel good. And like it's really difficult when nowadays whenever I'm like I see myself bullshitting myself, because I see it a lot. I have thoughts every day where it's like situations arise and I'm like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong, but like I can sit with it for like maybe 5 more minutes and then come out with a new answer, because I'm a lot more like self-conscious now, or just knowledgeable about like my reasoning behind things. I mean, what I've done now with the yoga challenge is like I looked at it from like an outside perspective. Like I was paid for to do the program. I didn't have to really. I think I had to pay like $5 a week or something to do it, and which is a blessing because it would have been a lot more to do it. But like one of my immediate reactions whenever I failed it was like I don't even like yoga anyways. And it was also, oh, well, like, you know, my life's way too busy to be able to like make it to 4 classes a week and like whatnot. So it's like, and no, that's lying to myself. That's me lying to myself because my life is not really that busy. I like to like tell myself it is because it inflates my ego and like, you know, I like to think I'm hot shit sometimes, but you know, my life's not busy. I have time for, you know, 1 hour a day to hit a yoga class and do a group meeting. So that's kind of where I don't know if that made sense, but that's kind of what my biggest obstacle is, just being honest with myself. There was another question that I saw.
Yeah. Julie says, amazing journey. Thank you so much. If I could tell my 19-year-old addict son one thing, what would it be? He's a daily weed user, started at age 13.
There's a solution for you, man. It doesn't, I don't know what your mental state is. But there's a solution, and there's a whole lot of people that are here for you if you want to explore that solution. You don't have to do it alone. There are people out there that love you who don't even know you, which is freaking crazy to think about. And that was crazy for me to know. Also, if you're tired with the way your life is going, like there's a solution for you. You have the ability to change your life. And it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. That's kind of a short answer without knowing the person. But the biggest thing that I wanted to, that would have helped me whenever I was in that, was that there was light on the other side. Because it was extremely dark place that I put myself in. So yeah, I mean, there's a solution.
Thank you, Drew. Does anybody else want to ask a question? Linda, go ahead. You can unmute yourself. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Am I unmuted? Okay. Hey, you know, I just want to say kudos to you for doing this and saying what you say is just, it helps so many people. My husband and I are not dum-dums by any means. I mean, we have backgrounds in criminal justice, and my husband's an attorney. I have a bail bonds business, and I've seen the darkness of criminal activity and drugs, but I had no idea what we were in store for when started to use marijuana, you know, back in high school. And he's 20, and he has had 2 major psychotic breaks. So bad ones, really bad ones that, yeah, it's just, I could go on. But anyway, we were hoping and praying that everything was good. You know, this has been going over the last 1.5 years. And now we just find out this is all happening just since Super Bowl Sunday, that he started smoking marijuana again. He went into a psychosis. Kind of, it's a psychosis, but it wasn't like it was before when he was in a really bad one. But he is justifying it. You know, he's justifying the marijuana because he's super smart. Okay, he's really smart kid, right? He's kind of too smart, but because of the marijuana, it is, and his way of looking at things, he thinks he can outsmart the marijuana. He thinks that it's not the marijuana, it's the stress that's causing it. And that it's the, you know, us that's causing it. And because we get into arguments and we get into fights and it gets really bad. And I've had to call the police lately. And my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they're RNs, one's a doctor, took him with them. and he's living with them now. And I'm thinking, well, we took his truck away from him and gave him the ultimatum, to stop. And if he wants to stop, then we'll work with him on the truck, but we have to have a drug test to see if he's smoking marijuana. He's lied about it for so long. We just can't believe it. So he has now since then, which was this is all happening right now. We're in the middle of it. He has since then blocked my husband and I, and my sister-in-law said he is furious at you guys. He blames you guys for everything. He doesn't want to have anything to do with us. He is, it's all our fault. And he is alone. He's alone in his psychosis. He's alone. He's sucked into his room being alone. He's sucked into his car or his truck being alone. And he's smoking marijuana and driving around. And, that's part of the reason why we took the truck. But, what is it that's going to help him to stop blaming everybody and see it? I mean, what more is there? What more is it going to take? It's just, I can't believe this.
Yeah. Well, I do want to give you props. I mean, you've done like everything you can. The biggest thing that helped me was like my parents kind of dropping the hammer on me and being like, this is the way it is. If you can't agree with it, get out.
That's where we're at right now. That's exactly the spot we're at right now.
Yeah. And that's like the biggest help for me. And that it continues to be. I mean, there's been times in recovery where like I've messed up and my parents are like, okay, you messed up. Cool. We love you. Get out. So it's kind of like, and that's really helpful. I mean, because, I have friends that I definitely, that aren't sober, aren't in recovery, but I definitely want them to be. And one thing that I know is I can't get them sober. They got to do it for themselves. I mean, as much as it sucks to say, and I'm not a parent, but I know that you're a mom. All you want to do is like just help your child, right? And so when you can't do that, like, and people are telling you to let him hit his own bottom, that's probably like some of the hardest stuff to hear. But that's really what it's about, is like letting him do it for himself. I mean, to an extent, I mean, my parents let me do it for myself. I mean, the only difference was whenever they were done, I was done too. And for some people, it's not that simple. I mean, and that's just the reality of the disease that me and your son have, is just like it tells us stuff that will kill us.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry to hear about your son, but I think what you're doing is the best thing you could do. You're trying.
He's seen a psychologist, and I'm just trying to take advice, of what they're telling me, because for as much as I know about the criminal justice system, I don't know anything about what's going on with him. I don't know anything about this drug-induced, cannabis-induced psychosis. I don't know anything about this. So I'm learning, and it's really bizarre to me. And nobody believes me, when I try to explain it.
Yeah.
That it's real.
Yeah.
And help, and I'm really hoping that we can. I don't want him to be alone in this.
Yeah. And he's not. There's people out there for him. Like Aubrey was saying, like if you need someone to reach out to him, like I'm all for that. I mean, but yeah, there was another question that I saw. Thank you for your question, by the way.
Yeah.
Do your parents get along? Did they during/after the divorce? It's kind of crazy. My parents get along extremely well. Not during the divorce, obviously. It took a couple years, I think for them to kind of get along, it was crazy how my like madness brought them together in a way. I mean, I remember like I would be like 10 or 11 and like get in like a lot of trouble at school because I thought it would like they would have to like work together to like punish me, which they kind of did. And maybe it worked. I mean, they're really good friends now. It's crazy because for a while, like this doesn't happen. I mean, this still kind of happens, but you know, I have like therapy sessions and my dad, my stepdad, and my mom will all be in the room and like conversating pretty well. So I'm really fortunate in that aspect. I just have like tons of family support. And that's been like a huge help because like I was just saying I like my parents have and are still like huge driving forces in my recovery and like have always them holding boundaries has been like the biggest thing. So yeah, my parents do get along.
Go ahead, Kim.
It's kind of, I guess, a little bit to Linda too. Perfect example is last night. My son's been home or hasn't smoked for a month only because that's what the rules are here. But I knew it was coming, and he just yesterday, I went downstairs and he was dressed and said he couldn't take it anymore. He had to leave because he just constantly craves the marijuana. And it was so weird to see. It was almost like, to me, like almost like a heroin addict. And I never looked at pot that way, really. But if I say anything to you, it's the fact that I guess my fear all the time, like, because I go to, I've been to Narnan and learned to cope meetings, and now here, because I'm just trying to absorb everything and read everything and learn. And it's a struggle because the biggest piece I'm always afraid of, and maybe Drew can say something to this, I don't know, is the psychosis piece always scares me, because it's one thing to tell your child, okay, you have to leave if you can't follow these rules, if this is the way you want to live your life. But I'm always afraid if he gets out there and he's smoking all this marijuana and he's because some of the stuff you were saying, Drew, my son does, like he's thinking people are watching him or out to get him. And so I'm afraid he's going to have a run-in, with the police because he's driving around. So it is, I feel your pain, because that's the part that sometimes I want to say, no, I can't let him go. I got to keep him here. I got to keep him safe because he's got that psychosis piece. It's just really hard.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it almost doesn't really matter what kind of drug it is. I mean, it doesn't matter how addictive or how non-addictive it is. It's kind of just like that addict mentality. I mean, like choosing something that you want over something that you love. Because and this goes for everyone, like there was never a moment in my addiction where it was like I don't love my family anymore, or I stopped loving my family. I just started choosing drugs and alcohol over them, and that was kind of what did it. I mean, I can't really say much after that. I mean, the psychosis part was for me was really dangerous. I mean, because I thought I was holding it together, and I didn't understand that there was a solution. And now that I do, like, this goes for anybody in the meeting as well. Like, I can put my email in the chat, and like, am willing to reach out to anybody who needs who's struggling, parent or teen. I mean, like this is what I'm here for, you know, is to be of service. So thank you for your question.
That was awesome. Drew, you are amazing. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the platform.